lets you experience being an entrepreneur because you're in charge of everything. You've got to market the business, you've got to promote all the time, you've got to hire, you've got to manage, you've got to produce work, you've got to deal with clients. So you really get that full experience. When I started doing that in college, I realized, okay, whether it's painting or something else, I'm definitely going to be doing something like this the rest of my life.
Wow, yeah. So you're in college, you start this painting company, or it's sort of like franchise.
That one was, yeah, I ended up, they don't let you own it, but then my junior year, the idea is you can run it during college, and if you are good at it and you like it, they give you a shot at becoming a franchise owner once you graduate from college. I couldn't wait, so I bought one in my junior year. I took the money from running this college pro and I bought a full cert pro, which is kind of the graduated program.
I see. Okay. And so you buy the cert pro and you're spending all this time on the college business. What happened to your studies at that point?
Well, that's a leading question. Do you want them to know I dropped out?
Yeah.
I don't take this advice, but I couldn't continue because I became very clear. You know, when you're really clear about something, I became very clear in my junior year at State that I did not want to do what all my friends. I was in school for finance. I was in some of my classes at Eli Road, and I didn't want to continue because I remember I went to my first recruiting fair and all these recruiters come to talk to me. I was like, I am not interested in any of those jobs. So I ended up dropping out. I got a huge contract for our painting company junior year, and it was a big decision. Like, do I go back to school or do I take the contract? And I took it and never went back.
Oh, wow. So then you went off, and you have this pretty successful painting business. It grows and grows, and you told me you had like a staff of like 40 people or something. It's the largest painting company, non-commercial, non-union in Michigan. And at some point, did you get tired of it, or you just had a great offer and you decided, okay, I'm going to take it and move on to the next chapter?
Somebody introduced the word exit to me at that point, and all of a sudden it was like the new challenge. Like somebody said something to me about, yeah, I've had 2 successful exits. You've all heard that? I didn't know what it meant at the time. I was 25, 26, and I didn't have all the cool stuff that I think some of you have access to today, like the TIC and the Hatch and the entrepreneurship program here. MSU didn't have any of this when I was there. I would probably still be living at the Hatch if they had it. But I remember somebody saying something to me about, yeah, I've had 2 successful exits, and I was like, what do you mean by that? And they explained it to me, and then it was like, this is my new challenge. I'm gonna figure out how to exit, because I never got into painting because I liked painting. I got into it because I liked business. And so when we got it to a point where we were the largest non-union painting company, that was in 2003, about 2002, 2003, it kind of hit me that I never wanted to be in this forever. I just wanted to build something, and I wanted to sell something, I wanted to exit something, and I wanted to do something new. So I went after that hard, and 2 years later, 2005, I was 29, I had my first successful exit, and I was pretty proud of it. And it was that exit, still today, I've leveraged that exit and the financial transaction that happened in that exit to set up a lot of the things I'm still doing today. Like the real estate, we bought a lot of real estate with that and invested with that and saved money to invest in other startups from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So after the painting business, somehow you got into financial advising. And so just tell us how that became about.
For financial advising, it was just really a natural transition for me. I always had my hobbies and everything were always about money, and you know that when all your friends come to you in high school and call you the bank, my nickname was the bank, to borrow money. They all borrowed money from me in high school and college, and I had to keep tabs on who owed me money. And so it just that was a natural transition. I was looking for something to do after that exit and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I realized I wanted to work on my own portfolio. I had enough of a pot from that exit to start spending time on my own portfolio. And then when I was talking to some other financial advisors, and they were like, you know, you can be an independent entrepreneur, work on your own portfolio and help others while you're doing it and make money doing it. I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Financial advisors make money while they're helping other people make smart decisions with their money. So that for me was just a really natural fit, and they said you don't have to have a college education to do it. I was like, perfect.
You have to take some tests or something.
Yeah, you have to go get
certified.
licensed.
Yeah.
You have to get all your Series 7, 63. They're not easy, but you don't necessarily have to have a college education.
Right. So I thought you made a pretty smart decision when you started like your professional financial advising business, in the sense that you targeted like an industry, right? So tell us how you decided upon the industries that you targeted.
So first get into financial advising, and they'll tell you like you can just go work with all your friends and family. Well, I didn't come from a background of people that had money. In fact, it was the opposite. If anything, my drive to make money has been to be opposite of what I saw my parents do, which was, as long as nobody's here that knows my parents, I can be honest, they were terrible with money, and they had pretty much financially ruined themselves by the time I was 18, and I remember kind of internalizing that and thinking, I am never going to let that happen to me or my family. And if anything, I probably went too hard because of that. Like, wanted to always be trying to make money. But what I did when I became a financial advisor, just decided I wanted to niche in something and become a specialist in something. So started interviewing different types of people. This would be much like any of you with a startup who in your incubation stage or validation stage, you're trying to figure out who is my target audience, what's my beachhead market, what's the TAM. Like, I didn't know all those terms at the time, but I was doing that just naturally, trying to figure out who I wanted to work with. So coming out of the construction services world and painting, I naturally thought, I think my market's gonna be construction owners, real estate developers. Now, keep in mind, this was like 06, 07, and those of you who remember that, what that was leading up to, 08, 09, real estate developers, construction, that was a market that was going pretty south pretty fast. So as I'm out interviewing them to find out what their pain points are, what their needs are, and how I can help them as a financial advisor, much like you would do in any startup, I realized these guys are all scared to death of the economy right now, and they're not talking to financial advisors. They don't have money. So I quickly shifted out, and it's kind of confusing for me because that was the market I knew, that was the language I knew. I had to decide to switch, and so I just started talking to doctors. I knew nothing about doctors. Started reading medical journals, learning their language, learning what their pain points are, and then I went out and I interviewed 50 doctors about what do you wish you would have known about finance earlier in your life, and they gave me amazing feedback. It became like a great project, and I documented everything, and from that I created a financial literacy program for young physicians. We're still using it today. That's 12 years later. I've got a team of financial advisors that are still out today. Fast forward a decade, we now speak about, we do about 200 financial lectures a year in local hospitals around the Midwest on basics of finance for young medical professionals.
Yeah.
So that's been our market.
That's great. And so I get the feeling that you're now, the last maybe few years, you're really interested in startup companies, like Lingco and the other things that you're involved in. And so maybe that segued into the startup program the financial program for entrepreneurs that you're putting together.
Yeah, so a few years ago, after getting this whole medical program up and running, and our team is kind of on autopilot with that, I took a little breather again, and I'm sure pretty much everybody in here can relate with this because you're all entrepreneurs, but you're always riding this fine line of ambition and being satisfied with where you're at, and it's a very hard line to ride because there's times you're looking at yourself like, why can't I just be satisfied doing this thing and just keep doing it? But then there's this ambition and entrepreneurialism that takes over, and you want to try something new and reinvent yourself. So after getting that program up and running, I looked at what we were doing and the results we had and how many financial advisors that were making a living off the system, and I said, okay, it's kind of like the painting business. I really like running the business, didn't like the painting part. I really like the business we built around working with medical professionals and helping them with their financial matters, but wasn't super passionate about working with doctors. And so I started thinking, what I'm passionate about is clearly entrepreneurs and business owners. That's what I've always done, so I kind of retooled our whole program. We've built this new program, Financial Roadmap for Entrepreneurs, and basically we also launched a small kind of a micro venture company so that we could not only invest in startups, I would call us a mixture of a VC and angel fund we're trying to build. Is really our own money right now, my business partner and I. But we're taking this small venture concept and we're seeding, just seed stage startups very selectively, ones that we think we can pair up with and offer a lot to as a team, not just money, but our skills and our resources, and working with them through our venture company, and at the same time helping these young entrepreneurs follow a roadmap for their personal goals and their business goals, because they get so lost in all the pivot opportunities. So we're trying to help guide them through, what was the underlying motivation that got you to innovate or incubate this concept, and don't just follow the next shiny thing. Let's help keep them on track.
Yeah, that's good. So maybe we can talk about the different startups that you're involved in. I don't know, I'll just pick one. Well, I mentioned Lingco,
Yep.
So why don't we talk about them for a bit?
Yeah.
You first heard of them at Startup Weekend, which if any of you haven't heard of it, it's a great program. February they have it, and maybe usually sometime in the fall they'll have it too. And you just go over the course of a weekend. You start with an idea and you build a product or at least a demo or something. And after that weekend, if you want to, you can work on it, make it a real business. So
yeah, it's kind of the weekend 54-hour boot camp for entrepreneurs. I know some of you have been in it. I've seen some of you in it, and I was a judge in that one. I think that was February of 18, and I was a judge in it. And that one I was a coach. I wasn't the judge, but the group that won it, they won it with, they go 54 hours, and is that right? It's 54 hours?
Yeah, 54, yeah.
And they go from start to finish and the judges are kind of looking for who had the most effective, most ready to launch business by the end of that weekend. The group that won it, I had spent some time with over the weekend on their project and giving them advice, and they pitched at the end and they won the event. And what caught my attention is the young founder I'm working with, Seth, came up to me right after they won, and they're getting their award and they're getting all their pictures taken, and he just busts out of the line and comes up to me because I was leaving, and he goes, "I want to talk to you because this is the thing we won with. I have no interest in that. I have this other thing." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds a lot like me. I can relate." Too many things going on, but. So he and I sat down later and he explained this adaptive language learning thing that he was working on the side, but it got rejected on the Friday night votes. He tried to pitch that for the Startup Weekend, it got rejected. He explained it to me and how much time and effort he'd already put into it, and it really caught my attention, not more him than the concept. Language learning wasn't something I was looking for, but so I got pretty involved with him and co-founded that with him pretty much from the beginning. And now we have we're using our whole venture team working with him right now. In fact, today he's on a flight out to Y Combinator we got him into their hackathon.
Oh, wow.
And we actually applied for him to get into Y Combinator. So if he gets the right attention while he's out there, we're hoping Lingco gets into Y Combinator.
Oh, wow. That'd be great.
Yeah, so that's one we're active.
For those of you who aren't familiar, Lingco, just real quick, is a platform for educators like professors or high school instructors, that sort of thing, to facilitate learning, sort of guide learning for the students.
Yep.
It's about as much as I can tell you about it.
Yep. And Lingco's got, MSU's French department is using the product now, so we've got a little bit of traction, and it's neat to see this thing come from, you two remember, wasn't Seth, and they did the grip tutor thing, do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
When they won that, and of course that wasn't something you wanted to work on, but the Lingco has evolved quite a bit since then. But it's been neat because we have a team of 3 of us working very closely. When you have a young entrepreneur like that, for us it's just investing in him and aligning where he can work on his product, in customer engagement, we're handling business, funding, legal, HR, and everything else, so he can focus on the product.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were doing all that for him. That really takes a lot of the pressure off him to,
Right.
be in a bunch of different places at one time.
Yeah.
Mentally more than anything. Okay, another one you're involved in, We Go Trips.
Yeah, We Go Trips. I met the founder at Startup Week in Denver, which Techstars puts on. Anybody been out to Denver for Startup Week? It's pretty cool. I talked to Paul and Ken about getting the bus and taking everybody to the Startup Week. They seem pretty into it. But like last Startup Week, I was there. They had all the guys from Shark Tank were there. Like it's a pretty neat
What
week.
time of year do they have it?
I want to say it's September every year in Denver. And I've gone for the last 3 years. You meet a lot of interesting people there. I was sitting in a session with Brad Feld, the founder of Techstars.
Yeah.
I was this far to Brad Feld, and we were just kind of chatting, and then this girl came up next to me, and she's like hands both of us her executive summary randomly, and we both looked at her funny, and she was just really ambitious, and she's like, please, she didn't even know that he was the founder of Techstars. So we were wearing, like I had an investor badge on, so she was just cold trying to get her executive summary out to anybody and everybody. I kind of ignored it, and then she followed up and started to realize how organized she was about what she was doing. Got involved as an advisor and an investor pretty early. She's now launched, and they've got quite a bit. This is a group, I would call it, the easiest way to describe this is Tinder for travelers. So you're looking for like-minded travelers to travel with, and she's got a platform she built called WeGo, W-I-G-O. Might as well do a little marketing here. WeGo Trips, the app is out and live. You have to kind of request the login because they're still in beta. But they've got a bunch of travel organizers who you would go through a quick assessment of your travel style. Are you a nomad? Do you like rustic travel? Do you like resort travel? It will quickly take you through an algorithm after 23 questions, decide what type of traveler you are, and then it will kind of ping you when there's trips available for your travel style. And you could join up with these random groups. Great way to meet new people and travel with like-minded travelers. So I just like the concept because I like to travel a lot, and I have a lot of clients who love that type of connection with travelers. So get involved in as an investor, and I'm still an advisor to them.
And I get the feeling that like it'll match you with some people, and then you like can all go on a trip together to like the pyramids or the Leaning Tower of Pisa, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and so anybody can organize the trips. These are not professional travel agents. And so it's generally people who are pretty avid travelers that are organizing the trips. And then if you went through the assessment, the algorithm pairs you up, then you would assume those are like-minded travelers for that trip.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's a really good idea. Okay, this is one that I know very little about, except maybe like the one-liner description, AKTV8, which is electronically controlled suspension system, is all I know.
Yeah, and here's the bad thing. You know about as much as I do on that one. I am completely a passive investor on that one.
Okay.
I know the founder very well. I've known him a long time before he ever... That one is another case of I know the person, I believe in the person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about auto technology, but I've been to I go check it out and I do my due diligence, and it's really cool what they're doing. But what you just said is about as much as I understand. These guys have built apps so that you can control your tire pressure and suspension of your vehicle from inside, and not have, so for off-roading and for RVs and semi-tractor trailers. It's a pretty big industry, but I'm just a passive investor in that.
And they're in Williamston too, right?
They are in Southline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Activate, AKTV, and then the number 8 is the name of the company, and I'm really excited about what they're doing. They've got some amazing, large, like Meritor, like big names that build semi-trucks, like talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these guys are beyond the startups. They're not a startup anymore. Right? They've got revenue. They're in what I would consider growth, and they're ready to scale. So that's one of those ones that you invest in, but you weren't early enough to even barely get 2% of the company.
Yeah.
I wished I was earlier.
Right. Okay, so this next one may be more up your alley because it's like financial and investing. SU2 Systems. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, I better be really good what I say about SU2 because I know there's a lot of people in here that know the SU2 guys. Paresh, Malden, Brad Gagner, that team. We think of them as an MSU-based startup because their office is right over at the foundation building. And I met them through Brad Gagner. We kind of had a mutual connection through coffee and finance. Brad used to work here, right, Renee?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Brad introduced me to SU2, really impressed with the team again. And
By the way, I introduced Brad to SU2 to Paresh.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, and Paresh is just such a genuine person. Like, how could you not pay attention to whatever he's working on?
When Paresh started telling me what he's working on, I'm like, oh, you gotta talk to Brad, because Brad talks about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So then they got together.
So they're building a very elaborate trading system. And yes, I'm a financial advisor, but I have no clue how they build what they build. But it's there to make for personal traders, for stock traders who, full-time professional traders. They built it on a futures platform. They've got R.J. O'Brien, one of the largest futures trading companies, already working with them. So again, I don't know if I consider them a startup anymore. They're kind of moving from that startup to more, they have revenue, they have some serious partnerships. They're talking to Fidelity Financial. They got Franklin Gold, the former VP of Fidelity, to be on their board. Like, I think these guys are doing some neat things. It was hard not to invest in that one when I met them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so, okay, so those are all like, kind of B2B or apps, that sort of thing. You also did investing in Wise Owl. That's more retail.
Blue Owl.
Blue Owl.
Yeah,
Blue Owl.
come
Why did you
on.
say Wise Owl?
But
Something called Wise Owl.
Owls are wise.
Yeah, that's true. Blue Owl Coffee. And you started in Rio Town, and then you opened another location in East Lansing.
Yep.
So how did that all come about?
And I am definitely, people get confused because I am not the face of Blue Owl. We have partners who are the face of it, Nick Berry, Rich Whitman, these guys run it, they're the operating partners. The way that I got involved in that is my other business partner and I, who do commercial real estate development, started investing in Rio Town about three and a half years ago. And we had bought that first corner building thinking we were gonna put our office in it. Hired an architect, did all the work, realized it was a little tight for us and the space we needed. And one day we were sitting in there at night and it was just this gross space. I mean, it smelled and it was terrible. The last thing it was when we bought it was a piano repair shop, like back in I think it was vacant for like 20 years or something. So we were like, man, we just bought this building. We bought it sight unseen. We never saw it. We just bought it because we saw a sign in the window.
Wow.
But that's because we were on a timeline. We needed a building for our financial office, and we knew we wanted to be in that area. And a sign went up, and everything we were looking at kept selling. So we called up. We're like, "What's the price?" And they said $120,000. We're like, "Sold, bought it."
Wow.
And then we're sitting in it one night. We're like, "This would be a really cool coffee shop." And we don't know the first thing about coffee, so we just started putting the word out and asked for referrals. And this happened through an Uber ride that we met Nick Berry. And it wasn't me in the Uber ride, it was Travis Stoliker in the Uber ride.
Okay.
I had just met with Travis the day before. Funny, when you start having to talk about this, I'm thinking, Renee, you actually connected me with Travis like the day before.
Yep.
It's funny how it all comes full circle.
Yeah.
I had told Travis, we want to put a craft coffee shop in this building. He's like, hey, I just had an Uber ride with this guy, and he was talking about wanting to put a coffee shop in Rio Town. I'm like, that's weird, let's meet. So, long story short, that's how we met Nick. And then Nick, my business partner Nick, and I invested. They basically came to us and said, yeah, we need money to get it going, and we need space. And we were like, well, we have the space, and we'll come up with the money.
Wow.
So that's how we got the Blue Owl thing going.
Okay, and then was Saddleback before or after Blue Owl?
Travis and Matt did Saddleback before we were there.
Okay.
Yeah, they pioneered stuff in Rio Town before we were there. We came right after them.
So why didn't he think of starting a coffee shop in that area before you?
Well, some of you in here know Travis better than I do, but Travis, I'm sure, he told me all the reasons it wasn't gonna work.
Okay.
Travis is a skeptic usually on the front end. It takes a while to win Travis over on something.
I see. Okay.
I bet he didn't think Saddleback would work either when he started it. But it's working pretty well.
Yeah.
And now he's making the sauce or something.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Okay, why don't we open it up to questions? I don't think I had anything else specific that I need to ask you. Anyone out there have questions?
Do you want me to open the video?
Oh yeah, is the mayor here?
Former mayor.
Okay, so we have a video here of former mayor, the angry mayor, by the way, Verge Bonero.
Yeah, so he came down to do our ribbon cutting at Rio Town Blue Owl, and then he jumped on the bike and started riding with the umbrella up and almost broke the bike. And so I thought if he was going to show up, we'd play this. Don't let him go off the curb.
And then he really be the angry mayor.
Yeah, see, we're yelling at him. He's like, leave me alone. But he ended up, I don't think you'll see in this video, he hit the tree with the umbrella. And that bike is a $10,000 bike, which I'm sure he didn't realize, but my other partner, Nick, goes chasing after him like, Mayor, be careful. Because the bike, at the time, until we opened the store, that bike was how we launched Blue Owl. That was the store. And it was it's a piece of art, and it really isn't meant to be driven too much.
Right.
It must be in the campaign mode.
Yeah, it's the right, it's the campaign mode.
And so did someone say, Mayor, why don't you pose for a picture on this bike, or did he just jump on it and start riding?
He just jumped on it and started riding, from what I remember. Which I like that about him. That guy, he's not shy. If any of you have had a lot of interaction with former mayor, the angry mayor, he says whatever he thinks and gets away with it somehow.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, Dave.
Reuben, you said you interviewed 50 doctors early on in one of your companies. How did you get those meetings?
How did I get meetings? When I decided I wanted to get this financial program going for the doctors, it was just referrals, because it's not easy to get doctors to sit down with you, especially if you're trying to solicit them. I figured that out really quick. But if you call them and say, I need some feedback, I need your help, I'm trying to develop a financial program for the young medical residents, that's how you get, any of them will sit down with you then, because they're like, oh, I'd love to help the younger generation. And several of those doctors ended up becoming clients naturally, but we weren't going after them as clients. So they're in any business, any startup, I think that's really important. When you're trying to get out and engage your market or figure out your market, start with if you're looking at, my market is young attorneys or whatever, then go after older successful attorneys, because that's what your market will become, and get them to engage and help you build something for when they were younger. Because and then the other thing is we're still using all their feedback today, going out into these medical programs. I usually open up my talk with, everything we're going to share with you today is feedback from senior physicians at this hospital or U of M, that they shared with us what they wish they understood about finance earlier, and now we're going to share it with you. So that opens up all kinds of avenues. And I think that's important for any startup. Yeah.
So most investors, angels, VCs have their track that they generally like to invest in, their areas of expertise. But between Blue Owl and the app and medical, you kind of have.
I'm still learning.
It's very eclectic.
Yeah.
So what do you look for when you're investing in a company besides an exit?
Besides an exit, well,
If you were
that's
looking for an exit, obviously, but
this is
first
why
exit.
this is why I need to go to more of these sessions and listen, because I have a problem, but at least I can admit it. And it's an addiction, and it's like you're too passionate about people when you see them get excited about something. Blue Owl was a very, very fitting one, because we had the building, we had the space, we wanted to partner with these guys. But some of these other ones are pretty random, and it's from coming across people at the right time or the right place. And it wasn't that, like with Lingco, I was looking for an ed tech company to get involved in. It's more about connecting with the right person at the right time. But your question is good, and I think about it a lot. I either could look at this one of two ways. I'm either really smart because I have a very diversified portfolio of startups I've invested in, or I'm not doing something right because I'm not narrowing in on a certain field that maybe I could be more of an expert in to help them.
We're gonna go with really, really smart.
Yeah, let's stay with really, really smart.
That's what we're gonna go with.
Yeah, I mean, I teach people about diversification in their investment portfolios. I'm just diversifying as an angel investor.
Exactly.
Let's go with that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What is the typical size of check you usually cut?
Typical size of a check? Well, that gets personal. Biggest in one of these startups is 75, and smallest is actually Blue Owl. Well, no, we did put more money in Blue Owl. So probably 25 to 75 as an angel investor.
Do you typically lead the round, or do you?
I have led several. I'm starting to get smarter about that. The first one I led was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was also out in Colorado, and it was called Hauler. And Hauler is a on-demand moving company, so it's just Uber for stuff instead of Uber for people. And I really liked it, and it was before Dolly and all these other ones had gotten big, and I led on that one, and I learned a lesson on that. You want to always say, I could be the lead, I believe in you, and somebody's got to lead, right? And I get frustrated because I'm helping raise money for Lingco Language Labs, and nobody wants to lead, right? So you don't want to be that person that will never lead, but then again, I'm learning that what I have learned is I will lead, but I want to match. So, like with We Go Trips, I led, but it was on matching lead. I said to them, find another person to match me, and it's just the same thing I do with my kids, I'll match you. My daughter wanted to buy a car when she turned 16. I said, I'll match you. Whatever you want to spend on the car, I'll match it. So now I'm leading as a match instead of just being the only. The problem is if you're just the lead and they don't find another one within 6 months, they've spent all your money and not got anywhere with it. I've just had that experience a few times. Yeah.
Obviously, what's the future for you then? Like, are you really focused on all the projects you're working on right now, or, are you continuing to work on some other stuff? Ultimately kind of like what kind of fulfills you, or what kind of gets you out the, bed now and keep going and doing what you're doing, you know what I mean?
What am I looking forward to, or what's keeping me going? There's plenty.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Just the ones we just ran through, to be honest, I'm a pretty active advisor or investor. I don't know how to stay inactive. I force myself to stay inactive on the auto tech one because I know nothing about what they're doing. But the other ones I've taken a somewhat active role, and it ebbs and flows, but Lingco's keeping me busy. But you have to remember, I'm still a financial advisor. I have clients I'm responsible to. I don't angel invest full time. If you ask what's my future, I would like to get to where I'm just actively investing and advising in startup companies and getting them from startup through the 8 stages of business that I've kind of laid out in my little program I take them through. Innovate, incubate, accelerate, funding, operations, growth, scale, and exit. So we kind of developed this little 8-stage plan to help get them through or meet them wherever they're at in that. And I really enjoy that. I don't care if it's the innovate, incubate, accelerate, or the funding stage. If it's a fit and we have value alignment with them and we take them through an assessment before we'll invest our time in them. Money's easier, right? It's the time that we're going to invest in them that we're really protective of. When I say we, it's my venture team that we put together. So we'll take them through our assessment and our what we call our values roadmap to make sure we have values alignment with them and the motivations are lined up in them. And then if we decide to invest in them, time and money, I would like to spend more and more time in those. But I'm torn because I really enjoy being a financial advisor too. And a lot of it's just, it all parallels. As a financial advisor, you're helping people make smart decisions with their money every day and investments. And as a venture advisor, you're helping entrepreneurs make smart decisions with their business and their money every day. So I don't know, it's going to be hard to quit any of that.
Yeah.
We had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really love how you were talking about going out, getting customer input, doing this customer discovery sort of phase with the doctors that you were interviewing. Could you say a little bit of like how you did those interviews? Like what kind of things were you bringing coordinate.
Oh, yeah.
What did the process kind of look like in that nitty-gritty
Yep.
doing good customer discovery?
And then, that was 12 years ago, I was much more of a process person then than I am now. You get a little complacent over time with all your process, but I was very process oriented, and so the first thing I did is, and this is from reading books and everything about building your market, but I sat down and I figured, first of all, these doctors aren't gonna give me much time, so I better be organized, right? And when you go sit in front of them, and I'm 30, 31 at the time, and these are older doctors, and half the time they're walking out of an OR from doing a surgery, and they're like, okay, I got 10 minutes, what do you got for me? And so you've got to be prepared. But I basically just put together 8 questions that I asked all of them on one simple piece of paper. And it was some leading questions from, I think the first one was just like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your financial awareness today versus when you were a medical resident? And it would just, all you do is you get them talking, you're not talking. Because if you're talking, in their minds, you're trying to sell them something. So immediately get them talking, it's just question-based. I had 8 very pointed questions, they each kind of led to the next one. There was a little secret question on the back of the page that if I felt during the conversation that we had a good connection, the back was, well, would you mind sitting down with us? Would you like us to take a look at your portfolio? But mostly it was getting them quickly to realize that they didn't have good financial training. The medical residents today don't have time for financial training. And then from there, the last question was always, who could you refer me to that I could go do this same survey with? So we might have started with, I might have had 8 of them that said they meet with me, and I got to 50 from their referrals. And then, and today we see 6,000, my team sees about 6,000 medical residents and young physicians a year at our seminars that we put on in the hospitals. But that all started with that survey. Yeah.
So you spoke briefly about your humble upbringing, that how that experience, especially with the family, lit the fire in the belly. Do you still have the fire? And second, do you see the next generation of yours following the same pathway? Do you think they have become comfortable enough, or do you think you have passed on those traits or the entrepreneurial traits that you acquired yourself that will continue the legacy of Levinsohn family?
That's a good question. If you didn't hear that in the back, he's asking the point that I brought up, that as coming up from a home that had no money and really kind of went through some financial ruin while I was in high school, also divorced while I was in high school. It started with financial ruin, ended up in a divorce, nasty to go through, and my younger brother and younger sister. So that really did light a fire in me, like you said, to where I kind of went the other way, almost too much. I became obsessed with making sure I always had money after watching that. And I would say sometimes that can be harmful. I think I went too far with it, and it took me well into my 30s to ease up a bit on how focused I was. And I would say what your second part of his question was, where do I see that going for the second generation, which would be my children, right? I have a lot of discussions with my wife about that, because sometimes we wonder, her and I come from similar backgrounds, families that didn't have money, and we both worked really hard to be where we're at. Sometimes we wonder are we going the other way? Are our kids gonna, is this just skip a generation every time because now they're comfortable and they're not gonna know how to work hard? But we're very intentional about making sure that they've got jobs. I mean, my daughter has interned at our financial office, or was a barista at Blue Owl the day we opened in Rio Town. So they've gotten involved. My son even today is passing out coupons for Blue Owl, our new location in East Lansing. We give him store credit to go pass out coupons at the local high school. So they get involved, but it's a very good point. You have to be very intentional about making sure your kids don't go the other way on that pattern, right? So things like, I could buy my daughter's car when she turns 16, but I won't. I had to pay 100% of my own. I'll match her. That's a huge jump from where I came from. Because I want them to have skin in the game, and I actually I put some of my personal biases on my clients as a financial advisor. They'll ask me a lot of times, did your parents pay for your school? We're thinking about covering our kids' college, and I'm like, actually, when I was going to Michigan State, I was supporting my dad. It was the other way around. my dad was out of money and I had a job while going to school. Oh yeah, that was my W-2. That was the W-2 job for about 2 semesters. I was doing asbestos removal. And that was one of the companies I did not have any ownership in. So I was doing it because doing asbestos removal in college, they would pay you a prevailing wage, like 17, 18 bucks an hour back then. So I was helping my dad financially while paying for all my own tuition, room, and board. But it's hard to relay that to your kids. My kids hear that stuff, and I think it's in one ear and out the other. But I see a lot of my clients that really spoil their kids, and in some ways, it really disappoints me because I can tell that their kids are not going to have the work ethic, the values. I think I'm doing a lot better than some people, but it takes work to get your kids to realize that we didn't get here overnight. Yeah.
So, professionally and as an investor, is there an opportunity that you didn't take, you regret not taking, something that you saw that you were somewhat interested in later on, found out kind of blew up? And then secondly...
The one you missed?
Yeah. And then secondly, is there a personal regret you have going through and having all the success with these businesses, but maybe something you look back on like, I wish I could have done that a little bit better?
You didn't tell me they were going to get into a bunch of emotional, like, I don't tell you that. You're getting into my kids. Like, this is literally stuff, and what you asked about, this is literally stuff I'm struggling with lately. Like, I hit 40 a couple years ago, and I'm having that midlife, and you guys are digging into the things that are causing me pain right now.
Oh, I've got one more, don't worry.
Yeah. Is this like a group counseling session? Wait, this is really one of those interventions.
We'll just call it Entrepreneurs Anonymous and we'll meet once a month.
My wife would be happy with some of the questions you're asking me.
Maybe she'd
because
get us.
She asks me sometimes, do you think if you just stuck to being a financial advisor and just put all your energy into that and could grow the book of investments that our company manages to X, that you might have more time freedom and make more money? And I'm like, yeah, but I'd be really bored too. So Chaz, I'm going to come back, though I did want to give a quick plug to a couple people in here that have been impactful for me. Renee and MSU, FCU, Chaz just asked me if I was a member. I think I've been a member for 31 years here since I was, you guys have to tell me, I'd like to know how long I've been a member. Look it up. My mom somehow, because she was an alum, got me an account here when I was like 10 or 11. I'd love to know the history of how long I've been a member here, but I think today we have like 15 different accounts here, and these guys have been really helpful with some of our startups and our real estate as far as financing needs. So quick plug since we're here at Michigan State. And then Chaz just asked me a question, is taking care of all of our insurance needs on our buildings and other investments and the plane. The weird stuff that I give him to try to insure for us. I got bored, I guess, and bought a plane, and I'm a student pilot trying to become a real pilot. And I called Chaz and I was like, do you insure airplanes? And he's like, I don't know, I'll check. Have you insured? But you're gonna have to repeat your question a little bit because I lost it.
So regret as far as an investment that you missed or considered but didn't decide to invest, and then same thing actually just personally with time. If there was something that you wish you spent a little bit more time on.
So I'll start with the regret, the personal side regrets. The only one would be, like I was alluding to, is getting overly obsessed with any one thing. And for me early on, because of the impact for my family, I went too hard on the side of wanting to always be successful and making money. And that has caused some challenges and pain in my own family over the years that I've had to kind of circle back on and go, it takes you years sometimes to reflect on yourself and go, whoa, that 5 years went by really fast and I was like blinders on, focused on my business. And all of a sudden one day you're just like, I probably need to slow down and get to know my kids a little more. So that, I would say, if anything, I've gotten way better at that in the last 5 years. But why did that take me well into my 30s to think like that? That's a personal regret. The one that I missed, I don't have an example yet, I'm sure I will, of an investment opportunity that has come to me that I said no to that is rubbed in my face yet because it was super successful. That's probably just because I haven't been angel investing long enough to have that happen yet.
What are some of the books that you remember that really impacted you?
Books that impacted me, I want to try to think of one that you guys don't all know already. Because I could say all the ones you all know, and they did have impact on me, like Good to Great and 4-Hour Work Week. Where's Andres? We were talking about 4-Hour Work Week. So all those have had impact on me, those ones that you all know. I got to think of one that you wouldn't know.
Or maybe specifically in the financial realm, right? Because if we're talking about you closing the gap from where you came from to what you know now, I'm assuming you're a collection of experiences as well as someone else's knowledge on the subject.
And I think there's probably people in here who'd be much better at the book question than me. I'm not a avid reader. I want to be. I'm a wannabe avid reader. I see books.
Dude, that's why I'm asking.
If you looked at my nightstand next to my bed, in fact, we did this little comedy thing about EA. A friend of mine and I were trying to actually create a group called EA, Entrepreneurs Anonymous, because we were going to try to help each other with our addiction of entrepreneurialism. And the more we started developing the concept of EA, we realized we were just starting another business. We're like, we're doing it again. And so we were like, we better shelf that one because I think this is just going to become a front for another business we're starting. But our point was we kind of put together like what would be the criteria to know if you're an addicted entrepreneur. It's when your bedside or your nightstand has like a stack of 20 books and you're like a third of the way through all of them. So if anybody else can relate with that, I have about 20 books that are always there and I want to read them so bad and I'm about a fraction through all of them. I am going to read the book you gave me recently, Angel, by, what's his name?
Jason Calacanis.
Jason Calacanis.
Calacanis.
I did get into it enough to know I want to read that whole book.
One last question, I think, before we wrap up. Okay. Where do you see Lansing? Let's just say, you're from Lansing, right?
I am from Lansing.
So, how do you picture Lansing in, let's just say, 5 to 10 years from now?
What do I say that again?
How do you see Lansing as a entrepreneurial community or a community itself?
Lansing as an entrepreneurial community 5 years from now. I'm pretty excited about where Lansing's headed entrepreneurially. About 5 years ago, when I started going out to Denver pretty often because it's just such an energetic place to be when it comes to entrepreneurialism, and I had invested in 2 out there. So I was going out there quarterly and going to their Techstars Week, and I remember thinking kind of that victim mentality of, I need to move because we don't have this kind of energy in Lansing and it's not there. And what I found is it is there. You gotta find it a little more and it's gotta be stuff like this. As I got more involved with MSU and the Tech Innovation Center and the Hatch, LEAP, and all the stuff that's happening here, I realized pretty quickly we've got way more than I thought here. And I just didn't know it was there. So that and what's happening in Detroit really excites me because it's like Denver, Boulder. Denver and Boulder collaborate really well out there on their startup ecosystem. And I think Detroit and Ann Arbor and East Lansing have that opportunity to collaborate with what's happening in Detroit and become like the Midwest Valley. You know, I think we really could, but it takes a lot of coordinated effort.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so before we adjourn, I have a little gift for you.
We have to make sure it also gets the insurance. Phil is very good with gifts. He waits the last day, but he comes up with the best gifts ever. So.
Okay, but I have a great partner with the gifts because we have a great resource, Tinker Lab, Melissa. Anytime I have an idea for a gift, actually, a lot of times I just walk into a store and I see something, oh, we can do this for the gift. So this time, I knew you were a aspiring pilot, so she has all these kids in her store make these little cars or just anything, like make little animals or whatever. But
You make it a plane?
we have a plane for you, okay? So, and her dad is the one who laser etched it.
Whoa.
So, and anyone can walk into the store and have something made like this, or buy a kit and do it themselves or whatever. So it says startup grant on the top, says your name on the side, and it says April 2019.
That is cool.
So,
Thank you.
So there's, all right. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why'd you take my